Erinn Orcutt was raised in Ontario, California. By the age of 25, she had separated from her ex-husband and become a devoted mother to her son, whom she cherished spending time with. Currently residing with her mother and stepfather, her home was conveniently located just 30 minutes away from her workplace. Her job as a cocktail waitress at Dave & Buster's restaurant in the Ontario Mills Mall kept her busy from Thursday evenings until Sunday afternoons. April 3, 2010. On that warm spring day, she had completed her lunch shift and, with sparse customer traffic, her manager granted her permission to clock out early, allowing her to head home and enjoy some quality time with her son. Little did she know, this seemingly ordinary day would take a sinister turn. Her mode of transportation was an SUV equipped with an automatic locking system that could be controlled using the car key buttons. As she unlocked her car door, a man swiftly entered through the passenger side. Shock enveloped her as she processed the surreal situation unfolding in broad daylight in the mall parking lot. A glimmer of hope flickered when a second man approached, questioning the gunman's actions. This newcomer, hefty and possibly larger than the gunman, momentarily raised her spirits. Yet, her optimism dimmed as she discerned something amiss about the second man. The gunman had an accomplice. Her final hope rested on the chance of someone passing by. Ignoring the interjection from the newcomer, the gunman redirected his attention to Erinn. Erinn complied as the gunman ordered her into the car. Taking the driver's seat, she watched as the imposing figure settled into the passenger side. With a command to drive, they exited the parking lot, leaving the laughing accomplice behind. In desperation, Erinn pleaded with her captor to release her. The gunman remained silent in response to Erinn's pleas, providing no indication of where she should drive. Pulling into a restaurant parking lot where she often spotted police vehicles, Erinn hoped for a timely intervention. However, her optimism dwindled upon discovering the lot, like the mall parking area, was deserted. Frustrated by the setback, the gunman's anger simmered. Determined to find a more secluded location, he urged Erinn to navigate to the rear of the facility. She strategically parked her car with multiple establishments in view. However, her optimism quickly shattered when, upon parking, the gunman instructing her to move to the back seat. Fear gripped Erinn as she complied. Tears streamed down her face as the gunman joined her in the back seat, signaling imminent danger. The assailant commanded Erinn to undress, causing her terror to intensify. In tears, she pleaded desperately for her release, but her captor responded with physical violence, pressing the gun directly against her head. Despite several attempts, the gunman struggled to carry out his intentions, his urges stymied by his body's failure to comply with his desires. The gunman vented his anger and frustration on her, inflicting physical harm, particularly targeting her face, with a cold and indifferent demeanor. As she looked up, she was startled to see the gunman pointing a camera phone at her instead of the gun. Blinded momentarily by the flash, she recoiled in horror as he snapped a photo of her, his smile chilling her to the bone. His command for her to smile before capturing another image added a sinister layer to the ordeal. The gunman sent the photos to the accomplice stationed at the mall parking lot, initiating a conversation over the phone. Repeated attempts to violate her proved futile as the gunman's body refused to cooperate with his intentions. Enraged, he seized her by the throat, applying pressure with a chilling grip. Then out of nowhere, the man stops. Erinn, equally puzzled, speculated that he might be employing psychological tactics. In an effort to appease him and maintain his composure, she responded, informing him that they were in her car and that he had compelled her to drive there from the mall. After approximately an hour, the gunman instructed Erinn to dress herself, leaving her no choice but to comply. Realizing the urgency of her situation, Erinn knew she had to act swiftly. As she dressed, she cautiously observed the man's gun had slipped to the floor and was now lodged beneath the passenger seat. In that moment, a plan began to form in her mind. In addition to the car's key security feature, Erinn remembered the child locks installed on the side where her son's baby seat was situated. Just as the gunman's phone rang and he answered, Erinn, survival instincts kicked into high gear. She flung open the door on her side, the one without the child lock, and made a dash for freedom. It was a gamble she had to take. Running for her life, Erinn refrained from calling for help. Unbeknownst to her, the owner of the nearby liquor store had been monitoring her SUV. Growing increasingly suspicious as time passed, he observed the vehicle's suspicious activity via CCTV, noting its prolonged rocking motion. On the verge of alerting the authorities, his attention was drawn to Erinn as she sought refuge in his store. When Erinn made her daring dash to freedom, the gunman opted not to pursue her. Instead, he attempted to use her car. Emerging from the back seat, he seized her keys and attempted to start the engine. However, Erinn had another security feature on her SUV that prevented him from using it. Frustrated and panicked by his inability to escape using the vehicle, he abandoned the car and fled on foot. Detective Robert Marquez of the Ontario Police Department promptly arrived at the scene, among the first responders.
I don't think he was going to let her go. He had done too many things in front of too many cameras, and his plan was to take her somewhere and harm her.
You feel that her attacker planned to kill her?
Yes.
The most significant clue was the gun, bearing the suspect's name taped at the bottom, an unmistakable labeling technique familiar to Detective Marquez.
Normally, police officers, they will put their name on the bottom of the magazine in case they have to let somebody else use their magazine in a gunfight.
What did you think when you saw that?
I was shocked.
Meanwhile, in the nearby city of Westminster, Officer Anthony Orban reported his gun missing or stolen in the Ontario area. Upon this revelation, the detectives connected the dots, deducing that the kidnapper was one of two suspects, either someone who had stolen Officer Orban's gun or the officer himself. Tracking down Officer Orban to a nearby parking lot, along with his friend Jeffrey Jelinek, a correctional facility officer for the state of California, the detectives found them to match the descriptions provided by Erinn of her attacker and his accomplice. With Erinn safely seated in the back of a police cruiser, officers escorted her to the parking lot where the two suspects were detained, requesting her to identify them. During the pre-arrest pat-down, officers discovered Erinn's car keys in Jelinek's possession. This revelation marked the first time Erinn learned that her attacker was a police officer, sparking immediate concern about the situation's implications. She feared they might evade consequences for their actions. Officers Orban and Jelinek were promptly apprehended by the Ontario Police Department. In the ensuing interrogation, both individuals professed a lack of recollection regarding the events in question.
Why is your gun in this girl's car? I don't know. Do you remember pulling down your pants? No. Why were you guys over by Dave & Buster's? I don't know. Do you remember following the girl to the car? I don't.
I haven't drank in a very long time. I've been on those antidepressants, and it just kills your sex drive.
Does it cause you to have a hard time?
I usually can't even...
So you have trouble getting?
Yes.
Jelinek willingly surrendered his phone to the detectives, revealing disturbing images depicting Erinn being subjected to physical and inappropriate violations. Additionally, they uncovered incriminating text messages exchanged between Orban and Jelinek, detailing Orban's actions against Erinn. Despite the detectives informing Orban that his accomplice, Jelinek, had cooperated with authorities in the hope of securing a confession, Orban remained steadfast in his denial. Even after the detectives exited the room, he remained unwavering in his insistence of innocence. The detectives traced Orban's assigned unit as a sex crimes officer, highlighting the stark contradiction of him committing the very crime he was meant to prevent. Fortunately, the amassed evidence was sufficient to indict him on multiple charges, marking a victory for Erinn. Awaiting his court hearing in jail, Orban made phone calls to associates, undeterred by the knowledge that his conversations were being monitored. In these calls, he made veiled threats towards the victim, and on at least one occasion, openly expressed his menacing intentions. Officer Orban entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, attributing the attack to the effects of Zoloft, which he claimed rendered him unconscious and unaware of his actions. His defense argued that any assault on Erinn was a result of a blackout induced by a combination of prescription drugs and alcohol. Called to testify, Orban detailed his financial, marital, and occupational struggles, citing these as factors contributing to his recent mental health deterioration. He attributed his condition to PTSD, stemming from his service as a Marine Corps veteran in Iraq, the Persian Gulf, and Afghanistan. Supporting Orban's testimony, his wife Tracy asserted that he was not mentally sound around the time of Erinn's attack, attributing his behavior to medication. Jelinek, seeking a reduced sentence, testified against Orban, providing a detailed account of the events of Saturday, April 3, 2010, when they encountered Erinn after a night of drinking. Jelinek's cooperation earned him a 5-year, 3-month sentence, and he was released in March 2013 after serving 3 years. In June 2012, the jury found Orban guilty on 8 felony counts after weighing all presented evidence. The insanity defense failed, resulting in a life sentence plus 95 years. Rather than face a lifetime behind bars for his crimes, Orban chose to end his life in his jail cell. This decision deprived Erinn of the opportunity to confront her attacker and find closure. To provide some semblance of closure, Erinn requested permission to read her victim impact statement during the trial's punishment phase. Though Orban was absent, his family attended the court session and respectfully listened to her words.
No amount of reasoning can justify the horrors that I was forced to endure that day, and those who tried should be ashamed of themselves. I am disappointed that a person in your position would have behaved in such a way, and that you tried to get away with it instead of owning up to your actions like a real man. But then, a real man would never have kidnapped, raped, beaten, and terrorized a woman. I choose to live my life and take back any power that your actions may have had over me. To do so, I have to do something that I have struggled with and never thought I would be able to do. I forgive you.